What's up everybody, this is Age, and we're continuing the segment of Beta Weekend event thoughts with the Necromancer's elite specialization, the Reaper. I have to say, this elite specialization is one I've spent the most fun with over the Beta Weekend. Let's start with the Greatsword. The Greatsword is an interesting weapon that rewards positioning while channeling skills. Each skill is pretty good and rewards you well for successful hits. Let's go over what each skill does. Dust Strike is skill number 1. It's the basic attack which chains into Fading Twilight, then Chilling Scythe. These attacks feel really good and are pretty smooth. Gravedigger is skill number 2. It's a heavy hitting skill that you have to channel for a second, which is a decent trade-off for the damage the skill does. Death Spiral is skill number 3, and this is one skill you do not want to miss. It takes a second to channel, but getting all the hits of this skill on an enemy will apply around 12 stacks of vulnerability, which is simply amazing. Nightfall is skill number 4. This is an AoE you place around yourself that damages foes and applies Blind and Cripple. I really like this skill on the Greatsword because it helps with using skills 1, 2, and 3. Grasping Darkness is skill number 5. This damages and pulls in any enemies that are in range. You also apply poison and gain life force for each enemy it hits. Nothing to complain about here. I can see players having a bit of a hard time if they solely use Gravedigger or Death Spiral alone because they can be easily dodged or interrupted. However, if you work in Grasping Darkness into Nightfall as you prep for Gravedigger and Death Spiral, then you can do a lot of damage. Now, onto the Reaper Shouts. The shouts themselves are pretty great. They act a bit like instant Necromancer wells and are more effective the more targets you hit. The biggest annoyance with Reaper Shouts is the cast time. The utility shouts should not have or have a really low cast time. The cast time for the elite shout, Chilled to the Bone, is fine due to it being an AoE stun. Maybe the cast time for healing shout, Your Soul is Mine, can stay as well, but players shouldn't have to consistently worry about their utility shouts being interrupted. It doesn't feel good. In fact, it feels strange considering most shouts are instant or channeled due to having a channeling effect. In the case of a channeling effect, the shout Rise can be the exception and have a small channel. Next up is Reaper Shroud. Reaper Shroud was really fun to use and I've done tons of damage getting combos off. An important thing to note is that any basic traits used for Death Shroud also work with Reaper Shroud. For example, the Necromancer Soul Reaping trait Doomfire works with Death Shroud skill 1 and Reaper Shroud skill 1. Speaking of Shroud skills, let's break them down. Life Rend is skill 1, it's the basic attack which chains into Life Slash, then Life Reap. These attacks, like Greatsword, feel good. Death's Charge is skill number 2, it's a very nice sliding skill for getting out of AoE, repositioning, or just straight up damage. It also provides an AoE blind at the end of the slide, which is a nice bonus. Infusing Terror is skill number 3. This skill is essential for Reaper Shroud as it grants you pulsing stability, which allows you to use Reaper skills with long cast times successfully. You can cast the follow-up skill Terrify for a fear. Soul Spiral is skill number 4. It's your basic spin to win skill and it does really good damage. Executioner's Scythe is skill number 5. This skill stuns a target and leaves behind a field of ice, which is great because other surrounding enemies are chilled. Executioner's Scythe into Soul Spiral is a great combo to land. Popping Infused Terror for the pulsing stability gives you a greater chance of completing both skills since you can be interrupted. After Soul Spiral, there's enough time to use Terrify for the fear. The Reaper specialization line mostly complements Reaper Shroud. You can use your other two specialization lines for a primary purpose and have Reaper Shroud as your secondary purpose. Or you can focus most of your traits on your Shroud for your primary source of damage. To conclude, Reaper is an amazingly fun specialization and Necromancers finally have some good consistent damage with Reaper Shroud and Greatsword. All I think is needed is the removal of cast time on the utility shouts, or reduce the times to a shorter cast time. If this is done, the elite specialization I believe would be in great shape. Necromancer mains probably have found more than I did, so be sure to voice your opinions on the forums. That's all for now. If you like this video, I appreciate a thumbs up. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.